All right, hey guys, for anyone who's here. Right now I'm just about to start things off. A bit of sketching, and Kelson should be here a little bit after 9:30. We'll see. Should be a few minutes or so. See me sketching. I'll probably be quiet, have some music playing in the background, and yeah, you just kind of chill and watch me draw, and I'll have the chat open in case anyone wants to stop by and say hello. But other than that, it'll be a pretty quiet stream. You know how I usually do things.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Not much.
So, feeling better?
Yeah, getting there slowly but surely.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry to hear you weren't feeling too good.
Well, I thought I just had a simple cold. Turned
Yeah.
out it was the flu.
Yeah. Hate when that happens.
Yeah. Absolute pain in the neck. I don't get the flu very often, and I think it was much worse the last time I did.
Mm.
So.
Yeah, I think it's been a while for me too. Hard to I'm sure you attacked it. You saw it coming and you tried to hit it as best you could. But.
Oh yeah, I did. I mean, I was already. Yeah, I was already in the process of taking stuff.
Yeah. Cool. By the way, we're live. Just FYI.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, I just loaded up the YouTube screen.
I sent the link out, so we'll see if anyone wants to drop by. Are you a superhero movie fan at all?
To a point.
Yeah. Yeah. I tend to not really get too excited about it unless it looks like it's kind of transcending its own genre. But like trying something that feels risky.
I was never really much of a I was never really much of a comic book person as a child. I was which is odd because I did a lot of drawing, but I didn't really have the opportunity to read many comics, but I watched a lot of cartoons.
Yeah, same.
So for me, it was more animation than still images. And I don't know, by the time I got older, I didn't have much interest. And I've picked up a few comic books here and there, and I mean, odd, different, like comic book renditions of things. Like there was that short graphic novel they had done to explain the space between Firefly and Serenity.
Oh, cool.
Which it was well done. I felt like it could have been done a little bit better. I guess one thing about the medium that's always kind of bugged me is when stories feel a bit rushed.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, okay, we've got so many panels, and we got to wrap this up now.
Yeah, yeah. So they're counting the pages for the trade or something, or how many they can put out for the issue. It's frustrating. Yeah, it always got too heavily episodic, I guess. Too. Never really understood that.
So when it came to the superhero stuff, I really didn't get into any of it mostly until they started making more movies. I mean, I didn't really have much exposure to X-Men before the the movies with Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman started. And
yeah.
Actually, I'd say the majority of my exposure to X-Men before that was the Children of the Atom tourney fighter. And then, of course, X-Men versus Street Fighter.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they were just kind of like, for me too, it was like just kind of an IP that was out there in the world, and you kind of interact with it if you had a certain video game or something, or you were watching the 90s cartoons, or it was just kind of, there was a lot of ways to consume it, especially in the 90s, so it was just kind of a thing you knew about. But.
And I went out and saw Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. when it was in the theater.
Yep.
Just because it looked interesting, and I enjoyed it, and then of course they bring in Sammy J as Nick Fury at the end, and I was familiar with the character of Nick Fury because, and again, going to go back to an arcade machine here. there was a Punisher arcade machine where you could play as either the Punisher or Nick Fury.
Oh, cool. Over that.
And I remember the original Avengers, what they looked like from the Captain America and the Avengers arcade machine. And I'm not ashamed to say I thought the original Hawk looked cool. Most people think he looks silly. I thought he looked cool, but hey.
That makes me want to look it up. Original. So what game was it again? I'm curious.
The machine was called Captain America and the Avengers. We're talking late 80s, early 90s.
Nice.
I mean, it was one of those, it was the same type of game as like Ninja Turtles or The Simpsons, where
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
you could have up to 4 players playing at once, and depending on which console you logged in from, that determined which character you were.
Man, I miss those.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember the X-Men one was pretty groundbreaking because it had 6 consoles. You could play as 6 different X-Men at the same time.
Really pushing the CPU at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but and then they started coming out with the other Avengers movies. I don't actually think I really watched Thor or Captain America or any of those until I saw the first Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
And after that gave me more of an interest in how they fleshed out the other characters.
Yeah, for some reason, the first Thor doesn't seem to rank high in people's estimations nowadays, but I remember it being pretty, it's a lot of pathos almost for his kind of fall from Ragnarok, and his kind of like his love for his father and for his his brother, for Loki. I always thought that was pretty endearing. Everyone loves Ragnarok, and to think it's a little. It was entertaining, but it's so. I don't know. Did you see Ragnarok?
I have not, and not really from a lack of interest. I just haven't gotten around to it. Nor have I seen Iron Man 3.
Yeah, I haven't. I've only seen the first Iron Man, to be honest.
Well, you're not really missing much with 2.
That's what I've heard.
And that was kind of what I heard about 3.
Yeah,
it's like if you didn't really care for 2, don't even bother watching. Tony spends like a total of 10 minutes of the movie actually in the suit. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Why even bother? So well, granted, I thought Robert Downey Jr. was the perfect Tony Stark, as far as I understand what the character is supposed to be. I'm like, all right, he was pretty much made for that role. That's fine.
Yeah.
And I think that brought a lot of character to the whole franchise. Saw Age of Ultron when that came out, or as I called it at the time, because I don't know if it's still popular now. We stopped watching it, but at the time, I think Blacklist was a pretty popular show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at Ultron and I'm listening to him. It's James Spader, and I'm thinking, okay, this is basically just Reddington from Blacklist as a robot.
Yeah, see, I never watched Blacklist, but yeah,
I had actually even I never finished it, but I had come up with the idea for a meme where Ultron is going on about his plans to destroy the world with a meteor, and somebody says to him, "Oh, you need a Snickers," and he's like, "Well, why?" "Well, because whenever you're hungry, you get hell-bent on world domination and grandiose apocalyptic plans." And then he starts going on this spiel about the history of Snickers and the Mars Bar Company, and then Nick Fury says, "Now see what the hell you've done? Just give him the damn candy bar." And then Captain America or Tony or whoever says, "Do you feel better now, Ultron?" And instead of Ultron, you see Reddington from Blacklist. He's like, "Yes, much better, thank you."
It's funny because I think if I remember right, I think Tony Stark almost killed, or Robert Downey Jr., like his Iron Man's almost killed the franchise. Like I remember, like was it like 8 years ago or something? People were like, "Oh man, Iron Man 2 and 3 is so bad. I don't know if it's gonna recover." We're just like they were the tentpole films, and people were wondering, is there already like Marvel fatigue? And then I don't know what turned it around at that point. Maybe it was the first Avengers, I guess.
Probably Avengers.
Like, okay.
I mean, Chris Hemsworth does a good job as Thor, in my opinion. And I think it's Chris Evans. He does a really good job as Captain America, although I have a hard time seeing him as anything other than the first role I saw him in, which was the popular rich jock kid in Not Another Teen Movie.
What, are you serious? Oh wow.
Yes.
I knew he was in Fantastic Four, but I did not pick up
Human Torch.
Another Teen Movie.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
He was the guy in Not Another Teen Movie. I have to check myself, because whenever I'm about to say Not Another Teen Movie, I almost say 10 Things I Hate About You by mistake.
Yeah. Similar. I just found out today Brie Larson had a like a teen pop music career before getting into acting.
Interesting.
She had she was in oh gosh, what's the name of that movie with it was a comic, and then it had the kid from Arrested Development, and he's trying to date this cool girl, and he has to defeat all of her exes.
Oh, was that Scott Pilgrim?
Yeah, she was like the band that they went to go see, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
I never got around to seeing Scott Pilgrim.
I wanted to a couple years after the whole frenzy, and it was actually pretty fun. It's pretty interesting. It's probably dated now. But.
Well, it was a conflict for me because I was interested in seeing it. It looked like a fun movie, but at the same time, I cannot stand Michael Cera.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. I mean, they built it around him for sure.
Yeah. I was sure of that. It's like I watched about half of Juno, and I wanted to throw things at the TV. Not for the story. I mean, the story for its part I thought was fine. I couldn't stand him.
Yeah, I never got around to seeing Juno.
I watched it because it was on TV, and I didn't change the channel.
Yeah.
And I actually saw the second half of it. So.
It's funny, that was kind of one of those movies everyone talks about as being kind of groundbreaking. Then there were all these like imitation versions, and they quickly got kind of old, I think.
Yep. Yeah, so I know the big movie controversy right now. Endgame is coming out. I still have not seen Infinity War, although I've seen enough of it. I've seen enough of it and enough about it to know that if I actually watched it, I'd just be frustrated most of the time because
Yeah.
let me qualify that. I'm fine with the characters and all that. It's just really frustrating that again and again they just completely miss the point with Thanos and keep just allowing him to do what he wants to do.
Or do you mean like with the how they kind of changed it from being a motivation to like he was like in love with death or something? death personified, and they kind of made it like a this tragic hero kind of plot instead.
Well, I mean, I leave that to perception.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
fair.
I look at Thanos as a allegory for the the global elitists who follow the Georgia Guidestones. They wanted to populate humanity by 90%, but it's for the greater good. So let's not judge them too harshly.
Yeah.
Air quotes around that. I'm being very sarcastic, but my frustration with the movie is the characters have several opportunities where they could actually stop Thanos, and they just... It's kind of like the opening of Scary Movie, where, who was it, Carmen Electra, whoever she's running. It's like, you can run to safety or you can run to death. Well, let's choose death. On the table is a knife, a gun, and a banana. Well, let's pick up the banana.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple moments. I think I saw the Mauler review of it, and of course he picks up on this stuff too.
I think that was where I saw most of it, and that's probably what colored my perception of it, because I'm like, all right, Star-Lord, totally blew it. He lost focus, and Thor just wasted a completely golden opportunity at the end. All he had to do was take his axe and chop Thanos' arm off, but instead he hits him in the chest. Yeah. And again, I guess he didn't realize Thanos could do the snap just like that. It's like, dude, you have to get the gauntlet off of him.
Yeah. Well, I would say Star-Lord, like, that was annoying to me because they built it up for a while, and so you can see his ignorance coming, I guess.
Yeah.
But the Thor thing at the end, it's believable because it's done really quickly.
Well, that's true.
And so it's as soon as you realize, like, it's already basically over. So you get a surprise, and it's not this annoying, like, drawn out, like, oh no, like you think it worked, and then you find out as soon as Thor does that was the stupid decision.
Star-Lord, I feel like you get the full range of Chris Pratt with that character.
Yeah.
you get the seriousness and the stoicism and the tough guy aspect of Owen Grady from Jurassic World, but you also get the childish impulsiveness and kind of Leroy Jenkins attitude of Andy Dwyer from Parks and Rec.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he pulls that off really well. Yeah, that was probably another thing that oh man, you know what? I want to say it was the first. I think he's like the Guardians of the Galaxy was the movie that turned things around. I think that's what happened after Iron Man 3.
Guardians of the Galaxy was a big deal, and I think the majority of it can be attributed to the character chemistry, because I mean, I'll say this: the story in and of itself, as far as sci-fi action movies go, it's nothing exceptional. It's nothing that hasn't been done before in one form or another. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of plot holes to go around. So I remember thinking about it, because it didn't come out too much longer after Jupiter Ascending, and Jupiter Ascending was collectively panned and just hated on with such unrelenting prejudice. It seemed odd. Yeah. And meanwhile, everything about Guardians of the Galaxy was amazing. The film could do no wrong. It's like, oh, you have to watch this. It's the best film ever. I watched it. I'm like, okay, this, Rocket is really funny. His banter with Groot is funny. Star-Lord, I like Chris Pratt. He's a great character. Some of the other characters, I don't know if they were as well fleshed out in the first movie as in the second, like Drek, for example. I mean, Drek's pretty funny, but I'm I'm thinking the entire time, I'm like, what is it about this film that makes it that good? Well, I mean, it does have flaws, but people are willing to overlook them.
Yeah, and I just have to wonder, like, maybe, I mean, I hate the phrase subverts expectations, but maybe it just feels a little bit edgier than people were expecting.
I guess.
A little more PG-13, I guess, and maybe the heroes feel a little more anti-hero like. That just feels a little like, oh, this is the punk rock version of, this isn't your grandma's superhero story. Even though it's kind of light and doing a lot of the same things.
Yeah, and I felt like that in and of itself had already been done with Watchmen, or so I had heard, because I never actually got around to watching Watchmen. But
no, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, probably more so Watchmen.
I mean, like I said, I watched it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting that they spent the money to cast Vin Diesel to say the same 3 lines over and over again.
Yeah. I don't know why they maybe they paid him by the by the phrase or something. I don't know.
I am Groot.
I just got paid for 3 words.
No, but apparently, like, everything Groot says in his language comes out as "I am Groot," but it's the tonal inflection that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Which makes me think of this one character in Babylon 5, who was supposedly one of 17 that looked identical, and they all had the same name, but the name was pronounced slightly differently for each one of them, and that's how you told them apart. And good luck actually catching the difference in pronunciation.
Oh, that's fun.
But he was a funny character, so that was.
What was the name of him?
Zathras.
Zathras.
And he had a very funny accent too. So he actually seemed, well, I think he would have fit pretty well into the Farscape universe, from what I know of
cool.
that show.
I mean, everyone brings up Firefly, but I'd say Guardians reminds me a lot of Farscape.
I actually, when I took a glance at Facebook the other day, one of my friends had shared a meme that was, by the character personalities, they were comparing Guardians to Farscape, and the meme, of course, was arguing that Farscape was infinitely better.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I've seen 2 episodes of Farscape, but I'm willing to hear this argument.
Yeah. Well, you've got the alien assassin, who's a different color, and she's really hardcore, but maybe she's got a softer side for the main, stupid hotshot pilot guy. Yeah. Oh, there's the big dumb muscle. There's the intelligent. I'm running off of memory, like 15-year-old memories, but I think there's like a very well, I don't know. See, the raccoon and the tree are tough, but there's probably a way. I mean, there's weird aliens. So.
I had actually done a Willy Wonka meme about Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Well, because after watching a couple of reviews of Jupiter Ascending and seeing, it's like, does anybody have anything nice to say about this? I mean, I didn't care what the masses thought. I went and saw the movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and then after that, I see everybody hating on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, they got these genetic hybrid creatures, and they're so stupid. And I'm like, okay. So the Willy Wonka meme said, oh, so you think the genetic hybrids in Jupiter Ascending were stupid? Please tell me more about how the talking raccoon and talking tree were so awesome.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that got some responses in the comments like, oh, well, that had actual character development and things like that. And I'm like, I would say there was character development in Jupiter Ascending. I mean, it wasn't stellar, but it's an action movie.
Yeah, that's one I didn't see. I don't know why I didn't see it.
I have it on Blu-ray.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
one of these months when we're able to actually get together, the four of us, we can.
Mm-hmm.
If it happens to be somewhere where we can watch something.
Oh, that'd be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yes, I also recently acquired the Mel Brooks movie collection on Blu-ray, so that's.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, got Blazing Saddles, Spaceballs, Silent Movie, High Anxiety, Men in Tights.
And it's just
there's a couple others I haven't even seen myself. So
yeah, I mean, you just saying those off the top of your head, I'm just realizing I've only seen half of them.
Oh, and History of the World Part 1.
Oh yeah, yeah. His movies, like I mean, people say that's about everything nowadays, but I don't really think you can make his movies anymore.
Oh no, you couldn't, and you almost can't show them to modern audiences because they wouldn't know what to do with it. They certainly wouldn't laugh. They'd go nuts.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of like weird. It's like, I mean, besides the obvious of it just taking risks that you couldn't do anymore, it's also like relying on, the stuff that Mel Brooks himself grew up on, like humor stuff from a previous generation, but he's just kind of taking it a bit farther. We don't catch the references anymore.
It is something though, because I remember even kind of thinking this, and then I heard this theory that like the new Star Wars movies are actually more based on Spaceballs than Star Wars.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, like Rey herself as a character, she's really like Lone Star, because Lone Star is pretty much Luke and Han Solo mashed together.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if you look at Rey as, just purely as a protagonist, that's what she is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
And then, of course, as much as I enjoy the movie, in Rogue One, we have the battle over Druidia's air shield. I mean, I said that the first time we're sitting there watching the movie on Netflix, and I see the gate into Sharif. I think it is. I'm like, it's Druidia's freaking air shield.
Yeah.
And they're like, we can't get in. I was like, oh, have you tried the combination 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? That might work.
Oh man, you're right. Oh, that's incredible. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
No, yeah. But it's yeah. I mean, even in Rogue One, I mean it's fun because Rogue One takes itself seriously in a way. But, it's like not too seriously, but it takes itself seriously in a way where it feels. Oh man, I don't know if that makes me like it less or more.
I do like the way Honest Trailer describes it, and I didn't agree with this at first, but as time has gone on and I've reflected back on it, it makes more sense. It's like a high budget fan film.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's true.
Because it feels like one of those for the fans, by the fans type deals, but with, AAA production values.
Yeah, yeah, and that's probably, I mean, in hindsight, that's probably what people are going to be saying in general about these new movies, because it's like an outside company looking in, and there isn't the, weird, awkward, insane genius guy who came up with the stuff to begin with, who's willing to take risks. Because every other day he doesn't really even care about the franchise, so he's willing to just say, oh yeah, let's just we're gonna try this. Everything's so precious that it has to be a fan film now.
I should stress that I only got that feeling about Rogue One.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I mean, that's, that's my opinion. Others are going to disagree. I happen to agree with, I mean, I think Geeks and Gamers has said this, World
Yeah.
Class Bullshitters, Mauler, I think, has definitely said it. The general attitude that you got, to a point from Force Awakens, but people were just so enthralled to see a Star Wars movie, and they kind of overlooked it until Last Jedi, and then they went back and looked at Force Awakens. But kind of it was, well, oh yeah, you're the old Star Wars fans. Yeah, screw you guys. We don't care what you want. Oh, but here in the middle is Rogue One, and that's going to have like all the fan service. So enjoy that.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, there's really two kinds of Star Wars movies right now, which is really weird. There's these like one-offs where it's like they, I don't know, somehow the fans took over the one-offs, but
And
then there's big tentpole things that are different.
It's almost like it's almost like with the main movies. It's like, okay, we want new fans. We want more female fans. We want less geeky white guy fans. Whatever we did to get the geeky white guy demographic, well, we've got to do the exact opposite because we want everybody else. And then in between that, they do these one-off films where it's like, crap, we still need money. Okay, we're sorry. Here, have this.
Yeah. All right, I'm sending the link to some Star Wars friends. Not just the YouTube link, so they won't. You can talk to us in the chat. Yeah, it's yeah. Somehow, I guess the one-offs are supposed to. I guess they consider them kind of throwaways, so they don't. There's not as much. Well, I was gonna say there's not as much producer oversight or executive oversight, but it doesn't seem like that's true. I feel like both Rogue One and the Han Solo movies, both their directors were fired, right, and replaced at some point.
I knew of Lord Miller being fired and replaced. I didn't remember that happening with Rogue One, but then again, I was not paying very close attention at the time.
I think the Rogue One director, he played nice basically, and he allowed it, and he wasn't he was let go on good terms basically, so they allowed him to keep, and they kept most of his content. So he was allowed to stay. His name was still on it, but it was a second director came back and reshot most of the character scenes and stuff.
See, even when it came to the original trilogy, I found myself in disagreement with a lot of older Star Wars fans, because I mean, at the time when Star Wars was big in the 80s and even the 90s, I mean, there were guys then that were my age when I was 12 who were big into it, and they all seem to have this consensus that The Empire Strikes Back was the greatest film ever put to print. And Return of the Jedi was just a throwaway commercial for kids' toys. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care what you guys think. Empire Strikes Back is dark and depressing, was back then, always will be, in my opinion. And Return of the Jedi is freaking awesome.
Preach it, yes.
Because
that was always my favorite. Yeah.
And no, I'm not talking about the Ewoks. I will agree, Ewoks are annoying. They're cute, but they're annoying. What makes Return of the Jedi as awesome as it is the Battle of Endor, the space battle. Lando flying the Falcon around in the space battle. With Wedge, you got your space battle heroes there. The speeder bike chase, even the battle on Jabba's sail barge. That's a good first bit of action.
Yeah. I mean, all the creatures. There's like, you get 10 times as many weird monsters and creatures in in Return of the Jedi, you do.
Yeah, we have the PG-13 Muppet Show that precludes Luke coming, and you see he's emerged from the chrysalis that Empire left him in. He's emerged not an old boy, now a man.
Yeah.
But and then of course we have the most awkward line of dialogue in the entire trilogy. Oh, you've always known. So really, what in blazes were you thinking in the beginning of Empire?
Yeah. Yep.
So I mean, here's the thing. People tend to make sacred cows out of stuff they're nostalgic for.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it done with Jurassic Park. For all the hatred the franchise gets with the sequels, people will not touch the original Jurassic Park with a 10-foot pole with criticism. And I've always found that kind of strange because I have had the most criticisms about the first one.
Yeah, I think I suffer from that too. I don't know if I bet if I thought about it, I could think of some holes, but I don't even know if I've ever let my brain go there.
Mea
culpa.
I wish I had it written down. I wish I had saved it in a text file because I actually did kind of like an honest trailer style narration of the first Jurassic Park, just from beginning to end. Catching a lot of the major plot points and dialogue and actions, and just very honestly laying bare that's like, okay, guys, we all enjoyed the movie, but it was far from perfect. I mean, we had Alan Grant, and yeah, Sam Neill did a good job as Alan Grant, but he knew how to say one thing: dinosaurs are birds. Dinosaurs are birds. Hey, fellas. Dinosaurs are birds. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Laura Dern spends most of the movie running around like she really, really, really has to pee.
Yeah. Yes. She's just like, Ellie.
Yeah. Dinosaurs are birds. And then, of course, Jeff Goldblum, who, well, it's Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah. He just makes noises for an hour and a half.
And somehow makes the movie in the process.
Yeah.
Because honestly, that movie without him would be like Seinfeld without Kramer.
Yeah. Oh, for
it just wouldn't work.
Yeah, somehow he adds like a weird, like strange sex appeal, I guess, to something that is almost entirely like it's Spielberg, like a really nice, like a feel good kids like family story with some shock special effects thrown in.
Yep.
Ouch. Yeah.
Although such a radical departure from the book.
Yeah. I remember going back to it.
My hands on a copy of the book just so I can read it because I'm curious. But apparently everybody who lives in the movie actually died in the book almost. And vice versa. Like everybody who dies in the movie actually lives in the book.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much, if I remember right, it was just like the premise that he kept and everything else. I lost it.
It's kind of like The Hobbit or the live action Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. What doesn't have in common with the book? Well, there's the title.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the title.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it does take place in Narnia. There is a lion. There are 4 children. There is a witch.
That reminds me. Talking about Narnia. I may have brought this up with you before, but it's relevant because they're starting up the Netflix series. You know about this?
Huh?
Oh, there's going to be like a TV series on Netflix set in the Narnia verse.
Yes, I've heard of that, and I feel justifiably frightened by that.
Yeah, I mean it's fair.
Given Lewis's obvious allegorical intentions when he wrote the books, and my bankruptcy of expectation for Netflix to adhere to that in the slightest.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that I mean, this could just be my bias, but since the movies came out, after the movies came out, and progressively got worse, I guess.
Oh yes, they did.
The Planet Narnia book. Did you read that?
I did not.
Something Wood. I own it. It's really fascinating. The theory being that this guy did like a PhD on Lewis, and he came up with this idea that there's a Christ allegory in each of the books for sure. That's who Aslan is. But the reason why there's 7 books and they're each so different from each other, there's a unifying theme, and it's not merely Aslan as Christ. It's the seven planets, or the 7 heavens in like medieval cosmology. That kind of makes sense. So one is what's your favorite? If you have a favorite, what's your favorite of the Narniad?
That's actually really hard to nail down because I like all of the books for different reasons.
Yeah. Oh man, you're gonna I'm gonna have to let you borrow this book. You're gonna find a whole new love for it. So my favorite is The Horse and His Boy.
Horse and His Boy is good. I think it's fascinating premise that it's a story within a story.
Yeah.
We actually stop moving the timeline forward, and we do like a cutaway section from a previous book written from a different perspective. At the same time, it was the perfect way to introduce the Calormenes, who factored in very heavily in the 7th book.
Yeah. And I have to wonder, I guess by that point, maybe he was kind of planning on building up towards that. But so Horse and His Boy is built, according to this theory, it's built around this framework. Okay, so, man, you're going to love this. So, okay, have you read the Space Trilogy? Do you have that to compare to at all? You have read it?
What trilogy?
His the Ransom Space Trilogy.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that one he wrote before the Narnia books, and those are more explicitly. There's a kind of like a divine council being that presides over each of the planets in the solar system.
Okay.
And there's a guy named Ransom who travels to a couple of them, and he goes to the moon, and he sees the side that faces Earth is fallen and barren and lifeless, and he sees this unfallen side that faces away from Earth that kind of experiences like a lunar paradise, and it's all kind of interesting. It's more on the nose. So then he writes the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and he's kind of pulled back from, I guess, like as using that kind of imagery as directly, but it's still there because Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is all about like a Jupiter, like a Jovian influence. Christ as Jove, so like as the king who brings good tidings in winter and will set the feast at the table and bring laughter back to the world, and like everything that's Jovian, I guess. That in medieval cosmology that kind of got redeemed, is based on classical Roman themes, but it got kind of baptized in medieval literature, which Lewis was, all about. Horse and His Boy is Mercury, so it's all about fast moving, chasing, stealing. It's all about languages, lying, telling the truth. Twins. Mercury has two sons named Castor and Pollux. One's a boxer and one is really good at riding horses. Like it all, like when you see it, it's hard not to see it, and on some level, it makes you like you're like he built this in so. He made it so integral to each of these books that the fun is in, I guess, like discovering how richly he's overlaid this into the story. And now, like, I'll go back like about a year ago, I tried to read the books again, and now I was like having more fun just trying to find the allegories than actually reading the story. So
I didn't have much trouble at all, like reading them as I read them probably about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I did not have much trouble then seeing the biblical allegories at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, my takeaway with Aslan, having somewhat different temperaments in the different books, if you even want to call it that, I would say that's demonstrating different aspects of God.
Yeah, and that's definitely what he was trying to do. So, like, if you remember Aslan in The Horse and His Boy, that's Aslan as the Hound of Heaven, almost like the one that you can't. They think they see a lion, and it's so swift that there must be multiple lions. They're always trying one,
but he was very fast. Aslan wore a few different hats in that book because he served as a guide and a protector, but also, kind of like a driving force.
Yes, and then pushing things forward. Yeah.
When he does admit to Shasta that it was him who attacked. I don't remember her name. The Tarkina girl.
Yep.
And Shasta asks, "Why did you do that?" And Aslan says, "That's not your story, and it's not for you to know." But then, of course, you, the reader, you experience her being told, that was cut for cut what your handmaiden was dealt for losing you. You needed to know what that felt like.
Ouch! Ouch!
So
it's good stuff.
Some people would see that as being cruel, but it's like it is justice and tough love in a way.
Yeah. No, he was all about tough love.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I remember. I think the first time Aslan speaks in it, at that weird place where there's like stones or something. And Shasta says like, who's there? Who are you? Or something.
Yeah, because he's riding along in the dark, and then he just realizes he's not alone, and Aslan's walking alongside him in the dark.
Yeah. So do you remember what Aslan says?
I remember parts of that conversation, but not how it started.
If I remember right, it's his first words are in answer to the question, "Who are you?" He says, "One who has waited long to hear you speak." So to emphasize that mercurial aspect. The like just like paralleling with the mute animals and the talking animals. You have Aslan, God is the animal of, he's the being of talking creatures. He's the one that brings speech its meaning, I guess, as opposed to the is it the Calormenes? Or that's whatever the Southern people are.
The Calormenes.
That's the Calormenes, yeah. Like they say a lot, but they don't really mean that. There's not a lot of substance to the things they say. Like it seems like they need an editor whenever they talk.
What I find very very interesting, and this is almost ironic, but not really in a good way. The what happens in the last battle, I'd say, was pretty much a a predictive warning about Chrislam, because you've got Shift the ape, he disguises Puzzle in a lion skin,
Yeah.
and says, oh, this is Aslan.
Yeah.
Which, obviously the book was written years before, but a puppet ruler, false messiah, a name that is a name that is synonymous for change, and handing Narnia over to its enemies surreptitiously. Boy, does that sound familiar?
Can you guess which celestial realm he's picturing through that book?
Not sure.
It's again, according to this theory, it's Saturn. So sickness, death, age, time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting was, there was the whole premise that, Aslan and the Calormenes, the demonic bird that the Calormenes worship, Tosh. Well, they were just the same beings. So, they started saying Tashlan, and then sometime after, I think, the third movie, Liam Neeson, who at first I thought did very well as voice of Aslan, is quoted saying, well, Aslan doesn't just represent Jesus. He can represent Allah, too. I'm like, wow. You've pretty much just personified the warning that Lewis wrote into his last book.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay, that makes me want to ask you, I mean, it's the question people often bring up when it comes to the theology of Narnia. What do you think about at the end of that book, there's like a nice Calormene guy that ends up going to paradise, and the idea, I guess, was that he thought he was worshiping Tash, and in reality he was worshiping Aslan all along. He didn't understand what he was worshiping.
I think the intended argument there is, it's kind of like what David said to Saul. We as humans look at the outward appearance, but only God can see the heart.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, it also, it's a question, and this is a question that's been asked. If somebody has never, if somebody was born and raised in a pagan religion and they were never shown the truth, I mean, they would have to, for the sake of justice, they would have to be given a chance to accept the truth, if at the moment of their death.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I guess it does play into as well the whether or not you buy into the idea of original sin, and whether or not people are already kind of predisposed in one direction already.
Oh, you mean that everyone's born with a sin nature?
Yeah, yeah. So being individually given like some sort of like mosaic law sort of situation before judgment isn't really necessary, because every law that they have, whether whatever is written on their hearts is already um, down to every individual. I mean, everyone's failing whatever law they come up with.
I'm not sure I fully understand what you're.
I'm probably saying it bad. Yeah, that's fine. Not a theologian. I mean, I tend to think I always thought that Lewis did something weird in that scene. I don't know why he did that. I don't know if he had theological justification for it, but it's strange.
I don't know. I mean, he clearly took some creative license here and there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like it's not a straight allegory. So
no,
do we just say, well, that's Aslan rules, and this is a story. So
yeah, I mean, here's another curiosity. The dwarves were brought into paradise, but they couldn't see it for what it was.
I forgot about that.
They were at this banqueting table, and they thought they were still in the stable. So it's not. I don't think everything in that particular part of the book is meant to be a literal, who gets into heaven, who gets into hell.
Yeah,
that's part of it, but I think it's also about whether people are willing to see the truth or not, even if it's right in front of them.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say that he's building kind of a like that, and then in other books too, like The Great Divorce. There's like this progressive concept at play of like onward and upward. There's not like a everyone sits down in the same place at the end of the story, but there's some kind of like perpetual progression going on. Everyone's experiencing, which is pretty neat. I don't know where he's getting that from, but he gets that. He puts that in a lot of his works, and I do tend to. I mean, that makes sense to me. So I'm with him on that.
Yeah, no. But speaking of the Calormenes, if you're at all reminded of the Calormenes when you read about the Rahati, that's not entirely accidental.
Cool. That's neat.
I did take really some inspiration there.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, when I go back and reread, I'm going to be looking for that, particularly in that marketplace, probably.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot more chapters in that arc because, well, Gray and Dash have a lot to do. It's not apparent yet, but they do have pivotal roles to play for the overall story.
Yeah. It's funny with the whole Tash Calormene thing. I might have a wrong reading on it, but I don't per se, like, I don't necessarily see. I don't think I see Islam in it. I think I see he's picking in. I mean, and Tolkien did this too. Like, they're picking something that's exotic from the standpoint that they're telling their story within. So, they're drawing from Western themes. Well, okay, they're going to look east, and they kind of build a fantastical, exotic Eastern counterpart or antithesis to the Western story they're telling. And I always feel like especially with Lewis, I feel like there's a very exotic. I mean, there's turbans and stuff like this, and there's a lot of like Turkish kind of Ottoman type feel into the illustrations too in the original. But
well, the Ottoman Empire, and you have to look at this in context. I mean, was the Ottoman Empire that overthrew the Byzantine Empire? Was the Ottoman Empire that committed the Armenian genocide? I mean, they had a lot to answer for before they finally fell. And I mean, a lot of people have said, Middle Earth is basically just kind of an allegory for, medieval Europe. Well, what would Mordor be? I mean, I think it happens to fall right where Turkey is.
You think? Oh, wow. You think so? Man.
I do. And interestingly enough, how Minas Morgul was originally, I think originally Minas Tirith was Minas Arnor, the Tower of the Sun. I forget what Minas Morgul was originally called, but I think it was the Tower of the Moon.
Oh, interesting.
And then it was, Minas Morgul. Well, it became Minas Morgul because it was taken over by Sauron. Osgiliath was taken over by Sauron. That was the old capital of Gondor. And it's interesting how there were these two human cities that kind of just became the seat of power for what remained of old Numenor in Middle Earth. And they one of them was taken over, and while the other one held. So, I mean, I've thought about this, and I'm sure there are different schools of thought on it. But I thought, maybe Minas Tirith was supposed to be like an allegory for Rome, whereas Minas Morgul was kind of like an allegory for Istanbul. That it was originally the seat of power for the Orthodox Church, and then it was taken over, and then it became the seat of power for the Ottoman Empire.
Well, the reason I get hesitant is really like, I don't know, like you see like in World War I, like they were calling the Germans the Hun and all this. Like there was a lot of cross pollination of the invading armies and enemies. There's just a long tradition of equivocating, I guess, between enemies in order to, you're just like all these kids, and particularly Tolkien and all his friends, were so highly educated, they could just kind of blend, thousands of years of history and kind of come up with these like metaphors that that could fit a lot of different templates at once, I guess. Like there's definitely like an east, there is an east and a west kind of symbology, I guess, going on. But
that's true. But I mean, what is the driving force behind the ideological conflict between the East and the West?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, this is not taught in modern history, but I mean, what most school children these days are taught is, the evil Europeans went on the Crusades and tried to wipe out the Muslims who had done absolutely nothing wrong. Well, that's a lie.
Yeah.
They had been raiding along the northern coast of the Mediterranean for 300 years, taking slaves. Part of the reason Spain was almost completely taken over by the Moors at one point. I mean, the Spaniards fought they fought a war against the Moors. There was actually a movie about that with Charlton Heston from years back. It was called El Cid.
Oh, I've heard about that. I should probably see it.
A lot of people in the modern era, they make the mistake of thinking, oh well, Islam was never perceived as a threat to Western civilization before 9/11. Well, that's simply not true.
Yeah. No, I mean,
depending on who you listen to, I mean, Islamic Jihad was just a patsy for 9/11 anyway. It was really about, bringing America into a post-constitutional age, which you know, whether you believe that or not, that was the end result. But, I mean, let's not forget why Thomas Jefferson suggested the creation of the Marine Corps and the Navy in the first place.
What? Why would that be?
Because our merchant vessels kept getting raided by the pirates. I mean, that's where To the Shores of Tripoli comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, they call Marines leathernecks because when they originally fought in North Africa, the common practice of the pirates was to, you know, behead their enemies. So the original U.S. Marines wore strips of leather around their necks to guard against being beheaded.
Oh wow! I just thought it was because they were out in the sun too long.
Nope. And there is also, I mean, and you know, we can get into some more stuff on this, but I mean, where the U.S. Armed Forces are concerned with radical Islam, there is a definite hatred for the Marines in particular.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a historical thing. I mean, it goes back a number of years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know,
it's not that I'm hesitant. Like, yeah, to me, like, not because I'm worried about saying something that wouldn't be politically correct, but I'm just like, when it comes.
Well, I wouldn't blame you for that, especially on social media, because a lot of people are getting fried for that these days. But
oh yeah, no, yeah, it's a absolute S storm.
yeah, and at the same time, I'm like, hey, you know what? It's eventually you're not going to be able to speak the truth at all. So
yeah, I mean,
say what you think if it goes against popular opinion.
Yeah. Just to summarize, like, what my view would be, like, at least with Tolkien, because of all the heavy industrialization themes of, you know, the evil East, and I just feel like he's such a complex storyteller. He had such a what's the term, like, Byzantine view of how to tell a story. It was so, like, overly built up with all kinds of layers and themes. I feel like he's taking shots at everything at once.
Oh, definitely.
And
I wouldn't say
like it.
I wouldn't say there's just one boogeyman at play.
Yeah. It's a lot.
And I wouldn't say the same about I wouldn't say the same about the last battle either with Narnia. But what I found interesting, you know, like what happens politically in the last battle, is that, you know, Shift, you know, he uses Puzzle disguised as Aslan to gain all this political power, and he uses this political power to basically hand Narnia over to the Calormenes, and they basically start taking it over.
That's good. I see what you. Yeah. Did I tell you I'm going to London in this week, into this week?
Yeah, you really want to be careful what you make comparisons about while you're there.
I know. I'm actually I'm gonna stop by Speaker's Corner. Have you heard of this place?
I have not. Say it again.
Speaker's Corner.
Speaker's Corner. You know what? I did see I saw your Facebook post about that.
It's rather it's actually sad because, you know, a country's in a bad way when it has a place called Speaker's Corner, because the implication is anything other than that corner, free speech is not allowed. And, you know, that's the case right now in England. But on I'm amazed
there's a corner left where free speech is allowed there.
Well, I guess typical to England, if there's a funny tradition about something, they're liable to keep an exception to preserve it, I guess. So apparently this thing's been around for like 200 years. in Hyde Park. So they give that corner a pass for that reason, I guess.
I wonder if you're standing on that corner and you have GPS records to prove it, you can get away with a tweet that you would otherwise be arrested for.
That's a yeah. Dare me to try it. Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't use Twitter anyway, and I'm afraid it's a question of time before we become what the state that England's in now. I mean, I think that may be delayed, but delaying the inevitable, perhaps.
Yeah, I think we found ourselves in a bit of a I don't know which direction we're progressing. I feel like we're in a deadlock right now, which is as good as any, I guess, and maybe is what, talking about the founders, it's almost kind of maybe what they sort of intended with these sort of situations. When there's a issue like the one we're in right now, like everyone just kind of bunkers in and nothing happens, and I guess that's better than something happening.
Well, one thing that I am and I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb saying this, but
yeah, please do.
One thing that I am fairly confident of is that American society as we know it is and has been kind of on the edge of a knife for a while right now. I mean, a lot of groundwork was laid, I would say, during Obama's second term, and I mean, even during the first. Mm-hmm. They were really going to start pushing the globalist agenda where, what stands in the way with, constitutional rights and things like that, those were going to get pushed aside, and people who dissented were, just going to be rounded up, shipped off to FEMA camps, whatever. I firmly believe, Jay at Helm was a dry run for that. Had the election in 2016 gone the other way, a lot of those things could have already happened.
Yeah.
But, I mean, so I do believe what I hear about, this secret war being waged for who actually controls the government. And it's not a party line conflict. I mean, God, that's a bunch of play acting. I mean, because certainly not everybody who professes to be on one side or the other is actually there. I mean, you've got a lot of people playing all sides. They're looking out for their own interests. They're trying to save their own skins. Most people on the Hill have leverage over their head from one source or another. So the real mystery becomes who's working for who and who has what on who.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing right now is that I think that's whether it's people watching CNN or wherever you get your news, I feel like I bet more than half of America believes that. Whether it's I still think Trump he's a Russian pawn, or other deep state kind of views.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's pretty suspicious about a authoritarian or like a subcurrent, I guess. That's I don't know how we both sides came to the same conclusion by 2016, but somehow we did. It's been pretty exhausting, but I guess cathartic in some sense. If you're okay with chaos, I guess.
No, I think a lot of what happened in 2016 was a backlash to the way culturally things had been pushed for several years prior.
Yeah, a growing pressure against dissent.
But yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of people that think, okay, the Clintons are terrible, but the Bushes were wonderful. Okay, and then I try to tell those people, okay, what if I told you the Clintons and the Bushes have been in cahoots since the 80s? And this whole Bush-Clinton trade-off in the White House was all planned out ahead of time. Oh,
Oh,
you're
really?
crazy.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, well,
I mean, I wouldn't put it past. Yeah, it's all old guard dynasty stuff. I'm not surprised if that it was the case.
you know, it reminds me. I mean, obviously, one is religion, the other is politics, but it reminds me of a lot of the stuff Heiser says in his writing,
Yeah.
where from what I've seen so far, his focus seems to be, all right, forget your tradition, take an honest, hard look at what the text says.
Yeah.
And if your tradition does not fit the text, your tradition is the problem.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't able to stay on late enough, and there were a bit too many voices going at once for me to really make this argument. But when your other friend Michael was sharing his views on preterism,
mm-hmm.
I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm not threatened by this because I personally I don't agree with it. Sure. It's an interesting premise. I just feel like there's too much of the text in Revelation that has to be, kind of waved off or said, oh, well, this is just metaphorical, or, well, this is what it really meant. And I feel like there's just too much that needs to be explained away to make it work.
Yeah, and Heiser is great about casting dispersions on like literally every viewpoint, I guess.
I've actually decided to make one of the Mizraim elders kind of loosely based on him, or rather his demeanor in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've been doing some rewrites. So the one chapter where the council members are discussing, the prophecy, and saying, well, it needs to be this way. I have one of them speak up and say, okay, let's examine the actual words of the prophecy. They say this, they don't say anything about that.
Yeah. Very Heiserian. Yeah.
Well, I like what he does, so I figure, pay homage to that if you can.
Yeah. Oh man, that makes me want to put him in my comic somewhere.
Yeah. Well, there is very much going to be a lot of divine council influence in, for good and for bad.
Yeah, I've been trying to put that more into my story, and I'm trying to. Since I started writing this story before I was reading Heiser, I'm since like in love with what he does. I'm trying to figure out how to retrofit it, and then also maybe whatever the second arc of the story, if I ever even get to it, gonna be, I'm just gonna put it full frontal, like gonna be there. But how to do it is gonna be interesting. I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, when I wrote the original draft, it was a much simpler, more straightforward narrative than what it is now. And as my knowledge of things has expanded and my viewpoints on things have expanded and evolved, it's necessarily gotten a lot more complicated.
Yeah, it's fun how that happens.
Well, honestly, the more for a world to be more believable, everything can't be cut and dry and just all this or all that. There has to be there has to be overlap. There has to be inner conflict. I mean, there needs to be an absolute good and absolute evil. But when you're dealing with human societies, or talking animal societies that are basically just people that look like animals, as James Dobson would have put it. I think it was a Focus on the Family piece years ago about the Lion King. It's like, those weren't lions; those were people that look like lions.
Oh, cool.
Which is true. It's,
yeah, that's the way to say it.
You're not actually depicting the animals themselves. You're depicting people. You're giving them the likeness of an animal to make it interesting. But
yeah, that's fair.
There's always going to be grayish areas when it comes to humans, and some people are gonna hit the mark in some areas and miss it in others, and it's not going to be consistent.
Yeah, and that's how we that's where the value in storytelling comes from, I guess, is how to make characters believable in that sense, that they actually fall short of the mark like we do, and yet also they can also teach us something about ourselves. So somehow they have to either be better than us or worse than us, or they have to impart something to us that we wouldn't have gotten if we were just going off our own assumptions about the world before we had picked up the book.
Yeah, and that is something in the one conversation between Ace and Kelson, I strive to further explain the difference between a couple of the names, so you understood what one thing was from another. And Kelson seems incredulous at the idea that people would confuse a race with a religion just because the majority of a particular race happens to follow a certain religion. That doesn't mean they all do.
Yeah. Like
I mean, and I'm trying not to be ham-fisted about it, but it does point a very real finger at similar preconceptions that a lot of people have in the real world.
Oh, for sure. I mean, can we say Islamophobia is a prime, that phrase is a prime example of confusing race and religion?
Well, I'm hesitant to use that word because that word has been used as such a...
Yeah, it's kind of a dead word.
It's such a doorbell used to shut down any argument that people don't like. I feel like anything with the word phobia attached to it has just become the I win button when you don't actually have an argument to defend something. Oh yeah, you're just nonsensically afraid of it. No, I'm voicing a legitimate concern. But I wouldn't classify it as Islamophobia. More just overusing a broad brush. I mein, a lot of people, they see someone of Middle Eastern persuasion, they won't even say. A lot of them wouldn't even know the difference between, say, an Arab or a Persian or a Turk or a Punjabi, or even a Libyan, an Egyptian. They just say, "Oh, it's a Muslim." Well, how do you know that?
Yeah.
Depending on where they live, they might actually be Christian. A lot of the Syrians were Christians. A lot of the Egyptians were Coptic Christians before they were murdered.
Yeah. For me, what's been eye-opening to me is speaking with or checking out, listening to Arab Christians, North African Christians. Like, they have, they live things that we only have nightmares about, honestly.
Oh,
and they
my
have
mother's constantly getting stuff from Voice of the Martyrs. So
yeah, and it's that's really helped me to discover I guess distinctions that I should be making, like realizing like, oh yeah, the Arab language, it really is beautiful. The Arab
Mhm.
script is beautiful. That's not synonymous with I don't know, certain teachings
Most
of Muhammad or something. You know, like
most most Arabic culture actually predates Islam by centuries, if not millennia.
yeah, yeah, and they
And,
still think the Arab Christians, at least this is my impression, they still think of that being their land, um, you know, taken over by an ideology, like as if it happened like a few decades ago.
I mean, here's an interesting example of ignorance compounded on ignorance. Let's take Disney's Aladdin, for example.
Yeah,
Most people would assume it's a Islamic society because the Sultan makes references to Allah, and well, because it's an Arabic looking town and
yeah,
all that. Even though, according to the original Arabian Nights book, it takes place in China, which you could ostensibly argue that they meant Persia,
mm-hmm.
but still, um, you know, would it have been pre-Islamic or trans-Islamic, perhaps,
Interesting. Mm.
depending on when the story it was to have taken place. But here's the glaring problem with Agrabah being a wholly Muslim society. The way the Sultan and particularly the princess are dressed,
Yeah,
they're definitely not dressed like Muslims. They're dressed like Sikhs.
yeah. Mm. Oh, interesting.
Jasmine, particularly the way she's dressed, she looks a lot more Indian than
Yeah,
Arabic.
yeah, yeah,
And um, what makes it where I say ignorance compounded on ignorance. You have the honest trailer for Aladdin, where of course they're poking fun at Disney's cultural sensitivity or a lack thereof,
yeah.
and then they say, "Oh, Agrabah is under strict Sharia law," and they cite as an example the merchant ready to cut Jasmine's hand off because she stole the apple. And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
dude, that goes back to the Code of Hammurabi. That predates
Nice.
Babylon.
Yeah, yeah.
That has nothing whatsoever to do with Sharia law.
Good point. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that was a Near Eastern tradition for thousands of years.
yeah. For some reason, yeah. Even when people try to be culturally woke, they tend to excuse me. They if something looks Middle Eastern, they assume it's Muslim,
Yeah,
and
and
they see
actually,
something
one
like that.
I don't know if you picked up on this, but I mean, you've rightly noticed that there are definite Hebrew influences in the Measure Aim. I mean, there's Christian
Mhm.
influences too, because I mean, for it to be kind of like a conglomeration of Christians and Messianic Jews.
Yeah, 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 sure.
But at the same time, you'll notice among the council members, a lot of them have names that could be attributed to, like biblical Jewish names, but others
Yeah,
have Arabic sounding names.
yeah, yeah.
Because it's like, here's the twist. There are Rahadi that are in the Mezraim. It's like that was what the grafting was about.
Oh,
That
neat.
was when the other races were welcomed into the order if they chose, to follow that belief system.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
So it's like actually the high priest, you'll notice he has a very Indian sounding name because his race, he's actually Basharan, which is more like Punjabi.
Oh, that's fascinating. Oh man,
So
I just assumed you were just mixing. You were just drawing from a lot of different stuff at the same time. That's
yeah,
really cool.
I mean, it was getting creative, but there is a purpose to it
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
because I mean, a lot of people in the West, they have this preconception that if you're Arabic, you must be Muslim.
Yeah.
or if you're Middle Eastern, you know, there's only certain belief systems that go on there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's actually a lot more complicated than that. I mean, even Islam in and of itself, it's not a cut and dry thing. There are different sects of it, and they certainly don't all get along with each other.
Yeah, yeah.
You've got people of varying degrees of zeal in their faith, and
Yeah,
you know, I mean, a lot
like
of
reformer types, or
yeah, I mean, a lot of what you would call radical Muslims, they would as soon kill non-radical Muslims as non-Muslims.
yeah, yeah,
Because they don't believe them to be devout enough.
yeah. They're hypocrites. I mean, just from a Quranic perspective, is my understanding that they're, yeah, betraying the faith just by being half-hearted about it.
And you know, I mean, for every religion, for every organized religion, there is apostasy.
Yeah.
And you know, I it's like, how do religions handle it? I mean, how did the Catholic Church handle apostasy? Quite barbarically.
Yeah.
If you look at the you know, things like the Spanish Inquisition. And yes, I will be making commentaries on the Catholic Church as well.
Yeah, yeah. And as we should.
Part of the world, but,
yeah. If truth exists, then it can be applied in any, you know, any circumstance, cross-culturally, cross time and space. It's sometimes I feel like we've even forgotten that in our culture, but
we have a habit of oversimplifying things.
Yeah.
And and unfortunately, the amount of complexity that I'm shooting for is probably going to lose most people in terms of an audience. Because they're probably going to get to a point where they're like, all right, this is too complicated. It's just too much.
Yeah, and I know that feeling, but I think it's I don't know, like every once in a while you realize you see a particular story, expect its readers to come and meet the challenge, come up to where the story is, and people resoundingly do meet that challenge. It doesn't always happen, but you see it enough where it makes you think that there's still people still want that. Humans are still humans, and they just like this. I mean, even if they're a little too addicted to social media or something, I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of people that still want long form stories, that still want stuff to be deep. They're willing to set aside time to explore stuff, you know, beyond tweets.
I wish I knew more of those people.
Well, yeah.
Be honest.
I'm trying to encourage myself by saying that too, but
I want what you're saying to be true.
Yeah.
Because if it isn't, we're in trouble.
Oh yeah. Hopefully, I'm not just saying what I want to be true.
No, I mean it's like everything else. There are people out there who are like-minded. It's just a question of finding them.
Yeah, and it's not, and increasingly, I think it's not on social media, and that's the problem because we've gotten used to expecting to find people online, and I don't know if that's the way. I think we're in a bit of a shift.
The internet, you know, when I first got on the internet about 21 years ago.
Yeah.
And what I found great about it at the time, it was a place where I could, with relatively little effort, find other kids my age that had the same interests, you know, like the same things. and talked to them, and the geographical restrictions were removed.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a halcyonic age. It's pretty good. You could have long form conversations or short. Or,
oh yeah, yeah, and you know, over the years, I had a number of friends used to have great conversations with some of them. Now the problem with social media, you may luck out and find people devoted to, you know, more long form discussion and means of communication there. I'm not saying you won't, but at the same time, it often feels like hitting up the bar scene if you're single and you're, you know, it's like, this was something of a conflict I found myself in when I was single, living, you know, where I am in South Florida, because on the one hand, you had your church girls where they seem to look down their noses at you no matter what you did. Sure. It's like, oh, you drink. Oh, you're the devil. On the other hand, you had your bar scene girls where, you know, they smoked, they drank, they, you know, used drugs regularly, and they had 5 kids from 6 different fathers.
Yep.
And there was not a lot of middle ground. Kind of seemed like it was either one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
And, you know, I realized pretty quick, it's like, all right, if you're looking for a girl that's got any kind of decency, don't go to a bar, because you may roll that 1 in a million 777 and actually find one who's there with a bunch of friends, but don't expect that. That'd be like getting the rare drop on the rare run.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah. In the same token, social media is like the natural psychological extension of what Sesame Street was for kids, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, where it systematically shortened the attention span by, instead of delivering long, engaging stuff, is just very quick hit, short, a taste, 2 minutes, and it's over. Moving on to the next thing. Then 2 minutes became a minute and a half. Then it became a minute. Then it became 45 seconds, 30 seconds. Now, if you can get somebody's attention for 2 seconds, you're lucky.
Yeah.
And I've had, and this is a personal frustration of mine, I've got a couple of friends, and, you know, they're nice people. They're good people. I do believe they're, you know, they're well-intentioned. But they will tell me, oh, yeah, I really want to read your story. I just don't have the time. You share 60,000 memes a day on Facebook, and I am not exaggerating. You have the freaking time.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to let you go soonish.
Yeah.
But my thing, I do have to admit, especially like reading a Word document is something that I haven't done in a long time, and I had to find the brain. I don't know. It was like discovering that there was a muscle that I hadn't used in years, and it's good. It was valuable to rediscover that and actually work it again. Mm-hmm. But it had atrophied so much that it was like learning to walk again, just to read something. You know?
I would believe that.
Yeah, and people will excuse it, I think, by saying, "Oh, I don't have the time," because what they're really saying is, I don't have the time to figure out how to use that muscle again. I think is what they mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because in a way, it feels like work, and
yeah,
you know that's
that's
why I was considering some. You know, I was even considering putting it in, you know, like a nicer PDF format, maybe with some, you know, visual formatting, just to, you know, make it a little bit more visually pleasing experience. That way, it's not just left up to whatever program they open the thing with. The reason I was
Yeah.
keeping it in the raw text format was that makes it so much easier to edit, and that way I don't have to, because originally I did have it set up as a somewhat nice PDF, but then I had to repaginate and reflow every time I made any changes, and that was getting aggravating. I was like, you know what? Until I really get this thing fleshed out, I'm going back to the drawing board.
Yeah, there could be if there's a way to format it just as if it were a book, and you had like a chapter ended, like halfway down one page, and then the next at the start of the new chapter, there was like a formatted way where it was, it started 2/3 or 1/3 of the way down with a nice little, you found a nice typeface to put, chapter 8 on it or something.
Yeah.
That sort of thing with a little page number at the bottom. I'm just trying to think of ways, but to people even, I'm describing a situation where it looks like a printed book, but people have trouble reading printed books too now, so I don't even know if that would be worth the effort.
And right there, that just kind of speaks to how diverse the audience is, and how hit or miss you're going to be. Because some people, like my mother, for example, she has trouble reading stuff on a screen. I mean, she flew through the facade and the portent.
Yeah,
and that's while taking care of my daughter during the day while my wife and I are at work. And she still found the time to do the reading, while the baby would be asleep, or once we would be home. And I just realized she's reading commentary and study books, things like that all the time. So it's like, for her, it's much easier to digest a physical book because she's old school. For me, I'm kind of on the cusp. I can digest old school books. I can read stuff on the screen. That muscle that you spoke of, I guess for me, it never really atrophied because I never stopped reading stuff in raw text format.
That's great. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
But I realized for a lot of people, and this was just something I kind of had to learn with time. I realized for a lot of people, they see a wall of text, or what they call a wall of text, and it's daunting. It's like, oh man, reading. I don't even want to deal with that. Yeah.
Well, they only see text. They only see that much text on websites,
Yeah.
And that's been heavily, Web 2.0'd for them. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's been kind of a learning experience for me. But it's like, well, if you want to, it can be frustrating, but make sure that you're seeking out the right target audience in the right places, and don't necessarily expect anybody that primarily through Facebook to fulfill what you're looking for in a reader who's actually going to read the entire thing and read it carefully and give thoughtful feedback.
Yeah. And that could include had to learn this the hard way, friends and family too. Just because they're around and how to contact them doesn't mean that they are doesn't mean they're your audience.
Yeah, I had a couple of friendships fall by the wayside, partially because of that, although I think certain circumstances were inevitable anyway. But
that's a tough thing. I don't know how to. Yeah, I tend to just not tell anyone about my story unless I'm overly certain that it'd actually be that they are the audience.
Yeah,
for that reason, I guess.
Well, I've wrongly made that assumption about a couple of people based on things they've said, so I do play that a bit closer to the vest now, because I don't want to waste my time sending stuff to people that are not going to bother with it, because then I feel like I've kind of made myself vulnerable putting something out there. It's like, okay, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, Sure, sure.
But what was I gonna say? Oh, crap. Nope, lost it.
It's fine.
I'll think of it 5 minutes after we get off.
Yeah. You can always text me.
Oh, no, I remember now. This is actually why I decided to take a break from Facebook. Because I thought, I was slipping too much into the pattern where I was just scrolling through, and I would make posts and get into, occasionally I would get into arguments and debates. I mean, a couple of those have been on posts of yours. And I was just like, you know what? I don't feel like I'm actually getting any ROI here.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm wasting a whole lot of time day after day, and for what? So it's like, all right, let's take a step back and let's just not do anything on social media for a week and see how we feel. And it was kind of like, quitting sugar or
really,
any other unhealthy habit. And after that, it's like, I took a look at it, like say the following Saturday. I'm like, all right, I don't think I really missed this all that much, because I do like human interaction. I mean, I love the conversations that we have, but the majority of the interactions that I have on Facebook don't even approach it.
Yeah.
It's not quality interaction. It's very, very cheap, very superficial, surface traffic stuff. And I'm like, all right, so until I can, because I'm pretty sure at this point Facebook is just not the place to look for it, until I can until more friendships like ours avail themselves, where can have these quality conversations that actually get substance to them. I'm just going to devote my time and energy to my family and spend more time in the real world.
That sounds beautiful. Yeah.
And my last post that I made, I'm sure some people just see this as me being whiny or complaining, but I'm just kind of making a valid point. Since taking off, because I said, look, most of you have my number, or at least my email, and if you don't have either, just message me and I'll give it to you. I haven't gotten a single message from anybody asking for either, and I've gotten texts from you and one other person who I've been friends with since we were both toddlers.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, that kind of just makes the point about what these social media friendships are really worth, which is bugger all. I mean, for all most of these people know, I could have gotten in a car accident and died, and they wouldn't even know because they didn't even bother to call me and ask what was going on.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of at a crossroads. I'm like, I have spent far too much time on social media and put too much value on it for too long, and what have I gotten out of it? So definitely going to be reevaluating that going forward.
There's the guy who was the human host on one of the human guys on Mystery Science Theater.
Good show.
Yeah. I heard him say once that if there was he said, if I could offer you a pill that guaranteed would make you at least like 50% happier and more at peace and more enjoying the human relationships that you have in person and all these other things, it absolutely would guarantee that at least 50% happier. It's like, how much money would you pay to get that pill? And he's like, well, what if I could tell you I'd give it to you for free? And what the pill I'm talking about is just getting off social media.
Yeah.
And that's probably
take the red pill and get out of the matrix.
Yeah. I'm thinking increase. I mean, the medium is the message, right? And the
Yeah.
message is think in quippy, weird news blasts that are meant to draw attention or to provoke, elicit any kind of reaction, whether it's love or
Yeah.
hate. Usually, hate is a stronger emotion. You can draw it out easier, and
That's why so much of what I would say on Facebook would just be automatically geared to trigger people
yeah,
because
yeah, you get
I'm good
more
at
out
it.
of it. Yeah,
And
it trains
honestly,
you.
after sitting mostly quietly through 4 years of wrangling, surrounded by people who, with the exact opposite worldview, saying whatever they pleased, it's somewhat cathartic to just, you know, walk into a comment section and, you know, drop a trigger bomb and watch people go nuts over it.
Yeah, yeah,
But at
it
the same
affords you that
time,
opportunity.
it's a cheap thrill. I mean, it only gets you so far, and then it's like the last time I tried that on one of your threads, that did not end well, and I ended up being far more frustrated with the outcome of that thread than I should have, and
Oh gosh, I don't even remember.
I didn't even
Yeah,
let on, but I was like, no, this is stupid. That was actually part of why I was like, all right, you know
really.
what? I really got to rethink this whole Facebook thing because
Well,
I am
hopefully
I
it
am
was.
putting way more emotional energy into this than I should.
If it had anything to do with me, I expect you to let me know if I said things that offended you or anything. So
No,
I hold
no.
me accountable with that.
Um, well, it's a conversation I would prefer to have off stream.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
not it's nothing you yourself did directly, but I mean,
Yeah.
even as far as that goes, I know we have some preclusive geological geological geographical challenges in our way, but
Yeah.
I'm more than willing to try to overcome those. I mean, I would honestly prefer it if at some point we were able to interact more in person rather than just online. I mean, I get
Yeah.
a lot more out of that.
Yeah. No, well, let's chat via phone. I'll text you about when I'm done with my trip. We'll figure out something, grabbing lunch or something.
Yeah, no, sounds good.
It'll be good.
And I mean, one of these days we'll have to set up a play date with the wives,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
at least on a day when you don't have to rush back to work 20 minutes later.
Yeah. Yeah. That's gonna happen. Just gotta figure it out. The big thing for the past couple weeks was just figuring out how to get to England and back.
Oh yeah, you've
But
got a lot of logistics to figure out there.
yeah, but once that's done, um,
See, we're trying to right now because our lease is up in May, and
mhm.
I'm sure we'll be offered another lease. I mean, you never know, we might not be, but we've been at this house 7 years already. But I'm thinking, would it be possible to move further south so I don't have such a long commute? But
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
should, man.
stuff is just not availing itself. I mean, we've looked on Zillow and Realtor, and I've joked about it. I'm like, you know what? This whole house hunting thing is making me want to change my voter registration to the
Yeah,
rent is too damn high party.
yeah. It's it's tough out there. There's snowbirds gobbling up all the real estate.
Oh yeah, man! I tell you, I was hoping to find something near Estero, but
Mhm.
I don't have $3,000 a month
Yeah,
just for rent.
yeah, it sounds about right.
That's ridiculous. And I
Yeah.
mean, we need a bigger living space than what we have now if we're going to have two kids. So
Oh, there you go. Thinking ahead.
yeah. So I mean, that's kind of the main problem with this house. I mean, if I had to keep doing the commute that I do, I'm not crazy about it, but I can handle it. But my main issue with where we are right now is just space. And if you ever make it up here, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah, maybe in a couple weeks or so. Talk to the missus about that.
Yeah. So,
but
I know you've probably got to get going soon.
Yeah, unfortunately, I gotta yep, got that schedule. Got to be in the office, kind of thing. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Thankfully, I work from home tomorrow. Although Thursday, Friday, I'll be up bright and early at 4 in the morning to
nice.
try to get down to Bonita Springs before there's too much traffic.
Yeah, good luck with that. It's like it just gets worse every month.
Dude, Bonita Springs is getting more crowded by the day.
Yeah. Just when you think they're all down here.
I mean, there was more traffic this morning at 6 a.m. than I've been used to seeing.
Yep.
It's like, I know daylight saving time begins next Saturday. And I thought, okay, did it happen this past Saturday and the calendar was wrong? Is it actually 7 o'clock? Because where did all these cars come from?
Must be some arts festival or something they're all trying to get early bird access to or something. Who knows?
I don't know. But,
yeah, it's crazy.
Well, hey, I as always, I enjoy watching you work. I have got to.
Thanks.
I have got to try to shake the rust off my Wacom at some point because.
Don't do it.
Honestly, for that freelance project I showed you the results of, I tried using my Wacom for that for about 5 minutes, and I was ready to throw it across the room. And then I just went to work with the pen tool, and just like every last bit of that was pen tool.
That's amazing. See, the thing is, you already have, it's kind of like riding a bicycle, a Wacom, but you already have that skill because you can make things really well with a mouse. And a stylus is basically a mouse. Like, you already have that ability to like not have your eyeballs be exactly where your hand is and yet still draw accurately. So
one of these days I'm gonna figure out how I can try drawing on a I mean, I may just at some point treat myself to one of those $600 Cintiqs, the more affordable ones.
Oh gosh.
And see if that makes a difference. Because there ain't no way in hell I'm affording the $2,500 one. But I might be able to swing the $600 one.
Yeah, they're I work on one at my day job, and it's I don't know. I mean, for me, I just as well. Like, I don't think I do any better with that. Actually, I think I do worse because it hurts my back. Because you have to reach your arm up and then work all day with your shoulder raised, as opposed to you could just stick a Wacom in your lap. Yeah, with little things that you don't think about.
Well, so I take it I take it you're limited on where you can position the tablet at work then.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could ask for a newer one. The newer ones are smaller and lighter, and I could stick that in my lap. But yeah, I have one of the older versions that kind of stationary on the desk kind of thing.
I don't remember his name, but one of the fellas that you do your comic artist stream chats with, normally when he's got his webcam on, he looks like he's drawing directly on a tablet of some kind, like an iPad or a Surface.
Yeah, he's got some huge thing. Yeah.
It's actually not even that big. I mean, it doesn't look any bigger than my laptop screen. It's just.
Oh, okay. Yep. I know. Yeah, it's Ben. He's like doing some sort of thing.
Yeah.
With some,
yeah, it's like he's got the tablet on what looks like a drawing table. And I'm like, you'd probably do much better with one of those. But yeah, I just have to spend time playing around with it.
Yeah, yeah. The nice thing is there's a lot of ways. There's there's definitely a way to do it for everyone now. There's
Yeah.
enough options and enough sizes and price points where you're gonna find something that's gonna work for you. I mean, there's really great apps where you can draw on your phone. So.
Yep. So I think ultimately I need to examine one of the you know, just as a test, one of the lower price point options that lets me draw directly on the screen, because just the way it works for me with drawing, when I draw, I lean over the paper in very close, and I get very focused, and I do not have that at all trying to draw on a tablet while looking up at a screen.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have to get you on. We'll have to discuss this. There's going to be something for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I just need to practice drawing more because I do not do it nearly enough, which is another reason I was like, get the hell off social media and start doing something useful with your life, like rollerblading.
Yeah. Yeah. So much more satisfying, right? Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's amazing exercise.
Oh man, I need some exercise.
I do now too, because I've been sitting on my butt for the last week and a half.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll call it. We'll call it a stream there.
Sounds
and we'll
good.
talk. We'll talk on the old phones another time.
Yeah, man.
We'll figure out.
Send me a text or whichever.
Okay. Cool. Well, have a good night, and
You too.
catch you later.
All right. Good talk.
All right. See ya
Bye.
later. Bye.